Welcome back to Launch Sports Cards. This is episode 2, part 2 of us talking about how to build a sports card collection for yourself. So episode 1 is up. If you didn't watch it, it is about buying cases, boxes, and packs, opening them yourself, the different things that go along with that. We talk about breaks. What are they? What they're good for, what they're not good for, and razzes or lines, which is something that might not be as familiar to most people. But all of those things are part of the market. They're huge parts of the market, quite honestly, and that's where they discuss. So if you're not familiar with any of them, or if you want some advice on any of those things, episode 1 is for you. This episode is going to be talking about buying raw cards and graded cards. So this is for everybody who is concerned with making money in this market, that is concerned with the value of their dollar in terms of what they're buying. This is the beginning of a very long journey and a lot of information in how to do this properly. And we're going to start with just the basics. And then from there, we're going to go dive into deep waters on each of the individual subtopics that are related to buying raw cards and graded cards. Method number 4, buying ungraded or otherwise known as raw cards. This is going to be the core of most people's dealings in the sports card market. So this is an intro into that concept, and how far you take it is up to you. But the better you get at this, the more profitable you can become, or the better collection that you could build for less money, whatever's important to you. So what is it? This is somebody opened a pack of cards, they got a card, now they're selling the card without grading it, not sending it to BECKETT or PSA, and now here it is. So the pros to this buying style are very, 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 very attractive to most people. Number 1, you can focus in on exactly what you want to buy. So you love a player, you think Logan Davidson is going to be the next great baseball player, and his value's down. You could buy all of his Bowman draft cards that just came out, this year, and buy them up raw, and then you now have a position in Logan Davidson if you believe in him. You don't have to buy every player on the A's in order to do that. You don't have to buy a box of something and get random stuff that you're not interested in and then try and move that. You could buy what you want. And you could be as specific as player, like I just said. You could be as specific as brand. You can mix it up. You're in control. That's a big, big benefit. Number 2, raw cards are cheaper than graded cards. Now, there's a lot that goes into this, so that's a blanket statement, but overall, it's accurate. Take 2 cards, one's not certified and one is graded. The uncertified one is going to be less expensive for you. Now, if the card is graded with a defect or somebody that didn't know anything sent out a card and it came back a 6, then different story. But the normal people who are dealing this, who know what they're doing at least a little bit, a 9 or a 10 or a 9, 9.5, 10 are going to be a lot more expensive, or at least a little bit more expensive in the 9 case for those than they would be if the card was uncertified. Okay. Now, again, there's strategies and tricks with that I'm going to do a lot of these videos on that, where sometimes because the card's raw, it might be better keeping it raw than grading it if it's going to come back a 9, or cracking out something that's a 9 because somebody buying it might have the hope that it's a 9.5, you could get into that stuff. Some might be a little frowned upon, some might not, but I'm going to talk about it so you're aware of it. If you choose to partake in those type of things, that's on you. But you want to be aware of it when you're buying stuff, which you'll hear about in a minute. Number 3, you have the ability with these to increase the value immediately by grading yourself. Okay? Buy the card raw, send the card off, card comes back in a good grade, you're a winner. Now, the only extra cost you're getting there is the shipping cost to send it to the grader and obviously the grading fee. Generally, you're not talking a big amount of money. So I wouldn't suggest sending out, $3 $5 cards that are graded now a 9.5 and they're $20 a piece, but meanwhile it costs you $35 to ship them and the grading fee because it's not a bulk submission on those. So that's another thing we'll talk about next time, the grading process and all that stuff. But if you get a card, send it out and grade it, you are going to increase the value right away, which is unique. So you don't need a player to drop 50 points. You don't need somebody winning MVP. You have that option of grading at your disposal to increase the value without anything changing at all in that player's situation, which is beautiful and really something that a lot of people use to profit in this. Any budget with this can be involved, and really any budget could get to the point where they're profiting, okay? So you just have to be smart about it and smart with what you're buying. But number 1, collectors who collect certain players or are looking for certain things, this is beautiful for them because maybe that card that they've been waiting to buy to complete their rainbow or, just their dream card, they've only seen it for sale graded. Because again, a lot of expensive cards, not really that often are you going to see them ungraded. Sometimes you'll do. That guy can't afford the graded one. The raw one becomes the option. So even a raw card for somebody like that might be damaged. So even the seller's saying, hey, the corner's nicked, the card won't grade, it won't gem. Here it is for sale. That's beautiful for a collector who is just interested in getting the item and isn't worried about the future value and reselling it or anything like that. The other thing is, again, people starting right out in this who want to get going, they might not have the money to buy the graded cards, the quality stuff right off the bat. So this gives them an entry point where they could buy smaller items in terms of price, still have upside, learn the game, and not worry about burying themselves right off the bat. So that's a real beautiful pro of buying the raw cards initially. You have short and long-term upside with these. So you could buy the raw cards, keep them raw, let them sit. I've done this a lot because there's some guys that I kind of believe in, but I want to wait it out, so I don't want to send them out to be graded just yet and spend the money, but they're here ready for that. So a guy like Cam Reddish, for instance, I like him as a player. I'm not ready to grade off his stuff, his base prisms and the things that you would grade if he was Ja Morant or Zion or somebody like that. So I'm holding them. So if Cam Reddish does turn into what I think he can become and a borderline NBA All-Star on a Hawk team that has a lot, Trae Young, John Collins, Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, Kevin Huerter, that's a decent core of a team. I like what they're doing there, okay? So Cam being part of that, and if they start winning, that's a guy that longer term, now we'll see more value. So I have his cards. They're sitting there. So they're going to go up in value if he does well. They'll go down in value if he doesn't do well. But I have the long-term upside. So I don't have to rush with them. I also have the short-term upside, okay? So if I took all those cards, because now I have bulk of them, which, again, I'll talk about in the tips section of this, I could submit them all. My grading cost would be very low. And the amount of 10s or 9.5s, or even if I get lucky and get a black label, let's say, or, 3 10s out of 100 cards or something like that from BECKETT, or PSA is feeling good and I get a good percentage of 10s there, I'm going to make money short term. There's just no way around it. But again, you have to know the strategy in order to put yourself in that position, because the grading fees play into this when you're talking about cheaper cards. All right. So the options and the chance are there. But again, like anything else, you got to learn what you're doing. So short or long term, you really can't go wrong with raw cards. So with that, you need to know what you're doing. So here's the cons of buying cards that are raw. There's a much higher chance of you being ripped off by somebody. Why? First of all, the card is not certified. So worst case scenario is the card's fake. So when you're talking about older, vintage, expensive cards and they pop up raw, Google articles, guys. You'll see fake stuff or doctored stuff, trimmed. It's out there. So that, if you don't know what you're looking at, you could run into raw. When the cards are graded already, obviously we saw a trimmed one get through and a couple other things. That does happen. But for the most part, you're going to at least know that the card is authentic. And that's huge, okay? The other thing that you got to remember with, kind of the shady stuff is the condition of the cards. So when you're buying, a lot of the times you're relying on the description from the seller and a couple pictures. All right. You could play tricks with cameras. You could leave out things. If you put a card in a penny sleeve and then in a top loader and take a picture of it, guess what? That surface scratch, you're not going to see in the picture. So you have to arm yourself against that, but that does happen a lot. So now you bought a card with the intention, I'm going to grade it, and that's why I'm buying it. And then you get it. It looked great in the pictures, and I didn't notice that, or I couldn't see that. Now all of a sudden you're stuck in a situation where you got a piece of junk. Now you got to try and return it. It's just a lot of headache for you. So that is out there. Again, all of this stuff, most of it you could defend yourself against with more knowledge. But again, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about all those different things. The other really thing to watch out for is the fact that sellers have the ability to switch out cards on you. So forget about hiding the issue. You buy a card in the picture, it looks amazing. And that card in the picture is amazing. But all of a sudden, you get something else. There's no serial numbers on a lot of these cards. The numbered cards, the parallels and things that have numbers, that's obviously not going to happen. Well, as much, I should say. I'm sure people have tried it. But the regular cards with no numbers, there's really no way to say that's that card or that's this card. So the picture's all you can rely on, so you got to pay attention. But again, there's a lot of stuff that go into the raw card market that you have to really know before you could actually be profitable in it. So number 2 with that, like I talked about a lot already, the grading of the cards. You buy them raw, you grade them. There's a turnaround time that you have to wait for. So if you're the type of person that's sitting there and you just spent $500 but rent's due on Friday and you're short, you might not have the time to wait for cards to be sent off, which, again, takes a minimum a day if you overnight it, but most likely 2 to 3 days. With the mail now, it might take 2 weeks. Then the company gets it, depending on what option you picked from BECKETT, whether it's 5 days, 1 day, 10 days, 30 days, or no turnaround. Again, that's business days. So if you picked 5 days, a week, and then the weekend, and then next week, and then they got to ship it back to you. So you're talking closer on a 5-day, if you pay that fee, closer to basically 12 days. So by the time you bought that coin and got it, you had 3 days there. By the time you send it to them and they get it, That's another 12 days. So now you're at 15 days. And that could be too long for a lot of people, 2 weeks. And that's if you pay the higher price. If you don't have the money to pay the higher price, or if the cards aren't worth paying a higher price, like the 5 days, I think, let's just say $35. There's the grading fee. Forget about shipping it per card. So if you don't have that and you got to do the unlimited turnaround, guess what? You could be waiting God knows how long. And that's Beckett, who's normally pretty on top of things. PSA, you send the cards, you could pay for whatever time you want. You might not see the cards for another 6 months. So you got to know all these things. And again, the next show I'm going to do is about grading and the companies and how to do it. And that's something that's major. And PSA is actually being sued because of the turnaround time of cards. So people are paying for 10-day, 8-day, whatever it is, service, and they're getting the card back 7 months later. The big problem with that is we're talking about sports here. Sports are seasonal. Normally, not right now. So if a player's playing and he's hot in NBA, in the winter, and you got the card and you send it out to be graded, and you get it back in the summer when things are not as popping for the NBA and the value's down a little bit, or people just aren't as interested in buying because they're buying football and baseball stuff at that point, that could kill you. So you got to remember that. And again, you will hear in the next show about a lot of this stuff more in depth so that you can make a decision on what's best for you. Number 3, like I just said, you have to know a lot. More knowledge is needed to buy raw cards. You need to know grading in and out. You need to know where to send what type of cards. You need to know that, for instance, Panini Prism this year and most years is really a hard product to get good centering on, which is one of the categories that the grading companies use to grade the card. So PSA is a little more lenient, apparently, on the centering than Beckett is. So you need to know those things. You need to know how to evaluate the cards for when you do get them and where you should send them and what you should do with them. You also need to know how to evaluate them through a picture, or if you're lucky enough, in person, and know what you're looking at. Because if you have a card in your hand and you're looking at it and you have no idea what the grading criteria is, but the card looks nice to you, guess what? That's not going to help you. So you have to educate yourself thoroughly in order to do this, to actually profit off of it. Now, if you're just a collector and you don't care and you just want that card, like I mentioned, that's fine. But you still need to know about fakes. You still need to know things that can happen in there. So you need to really be on top of your game in order to do this and not get hurt by it, okay? With that, there's more variables to actually figure out what the value of the card is. So a card that's graded a 10, a 9, a 9.5, an 8.5, raw, damaged, those are all different prices, but at least you know what the card is. That raw card sitting there, you might have an assumption or a good guess, or maybe you're an expert and you know, but there's no guarantees in the grading world. They say grading is subjective. So you might think it's a 10, and it comes back to you a 9. That is something that you really have to figure out and almost undergrade the cards in your mind. So if you think the card's going to be a 10, assume it's only going to be a 9.5. And that will help you kind of make less mistakes valuing the cards. Because again, if you're looking at a card, it's raw, and you say, hey, that's a 10. So you're willing to pay more money to that gentleman because you know that's a 10, and a 10 goes for $400 and the raw card goes for $70. So you're willing to pay $100 for it. But then it comes back as a 9 and it's only worth $112, but you just spent $30 to grade it. All right. So it's a moving market. Now, the other big thing which affects all sports cards is the market moves. I mean, in basketball season, if a guy has a big game by tomorrow morning, the market has moved and people are looking to buy the raw ungraded cards to grade them. It happened with Kobe White when he went off for the Bulls. His cards literally jumped. Within a day and a half, his cards were almost double the price. So that goes with all cards, but those are things that makes it a little more difficult to pin down a value. So you got to really pay attention to that. So where are we buying ungraded cards? Might sound simple, but maybe you don't know. The best place to buy ungraded cards is in person. You could see it. Now, assuming you've educated yourself and you know what you're looking at, you have the cards in hands. You could take the card out. You could evaluate the card. You could use a magnifying glass. You could use a nice light. You could do a lot of different things that you can't do with a picture online. So that's ideal. Now, one thing to be careful of with that, when you're dealing with somebody's cards in person, you better know what you're doing in terms of handling a card. So if you go ahead and you pull the thing out and you nick the corner, guess what? You're going to have an issue. So just be careful with that. But that is the best place. So your local card store, every single one of them will have a bunch of ungraded cards in there. That's not ideal for value, but it's a good place to practice looking at cards. And don't just go in there and start looking at stuff and then say thanks and walk out. Buy something, even if it's not something you're going to make money off of, because don't waste the guy's time and take up hours in his store and with no intention of spending money, because that will piss a guy off. But you could go look, buy a thing here and there, try and work the grading scale in your mind, and it's a good time to see a bunch of different types of cards in one place at one time. So if you do have a local card shop, go in there, spend a little bit of money, look at some different things. The other place, which is like that, would be the card show. So right now, the National was supposed to be in Atlantic City in the summer. Nothing's happening. Card shows are canceled. So right now, you're not going to any card shows. And with that in mind, you're not going to any card shops either. They're not essential businesses, I'm sure. But when they are open and the shows do resume, that's a great place to just go. So if you like cards, go to a card show. Even if it's a small little rinky-dink one, at the local Knights of Columbus, just go, because there will be dealers there. There will be product there, and it's just a place where you can go and look and browse and not feel pressure to spend any money. So that's good. But you also, at the bigger shows, have a great opportunity to go through cards, see them in person. Again, condition-wise, that helps. Also, you can find steals. I've seen plenty of stories of people buying $50 cards that were in the dollar box, or sometimes even bigger than that the dealer messed up on, wasn't paying attention, didn't care. A lot of things go on. I sell coins. I have hundreds of coins. When we do coin shows, inventorying this stuff is a real pain in the ass with travel and what's in your store, what did you leave, and sometimes you make mistakes. So you could take advantage of that, obviously, with that. Local collectors that will obviously always be in the market to look at cards, sell cards, so trades happen like that a lot. But the local people out there are a good option. Now, if it's a real collector, I could tell you from experience, you're not going to get a great deal. Collectors aren't giving away their stuff. They know their stuff specifically, and they're not looking to give it away in most cases. But something that does happen is collections will come up for sale of somebody like that who has unfortunately passed away or is in a financial crisis and doesn't have a choice anymore. So that is an option. So you could find some of those things at maybe a garage sale. Somebody will have something that was their father's that they put out, or you'll see an ad on Craigslist or wherever else that, hey, I need to liquidate, or estate sale, have a card collection. People put ads out in the local paper saying, I buy cards, so they get calls. So there's all different ways to do that, and that's for any type of card. eBay is a good place because you have protection on the internet. So in person, you have your own eyes to evaluate things. On the internet, you just have pictures. Pictures, like I said, could be deceiving. So eBay is a good place because you have buyer protection. eBay protects the buyer. I talked about it in the first video. eBay's on the buyer side. So somebody sends you a card that is damaged, you could send it back and you will get a refund. Okay? Anything that is item not described under eBay's world, the picture looked one way and it looked different when you got it. It got damaged in the mail. The guy switched the card. Whatever it is, you're getting your money back 100%. Okay? Even if your card's not damaged, nothing's wrong with it, you'll still get your money back if you go that route. So that's a very bastardly move on your part, but it is something that you need to know because if you're selling, that could happen. So you got to take a lot of pictures and protect yourself a little bit. But eBay's buyer protection is unbelievable. So you could always get rid of the card. Even if the person has no returns on there, you could still get rid of the card. So that is the place to buy on the internet. Problem with eBay, though, is the prices might not be the best because the seller has fees and different things. So if you're not going to be on eBay, but you have to go on the internet, Facebook, Instagram have become hugely popular in the sports cards. So there's a billion groups for specific cards, for cards in general. So join those groups. You'll see people posting things all day long. They'll post boxes, like I was mentioning earlier. You'll find breaks. People will be lining stuff left and right, but also a lot of people will just put up cards directly for sale. And that's a good place to find some stuff and see stuff. And even if you're not ready to buy yet, you don't feel comfortable enough, it's great to see what somebody's listing something for. And then you can read the comments, see if it's sold at that price, see what people are saying about it, see what people are saying about the condition of it. Because, again, people love to comment. So even if people have no intention of buying, they'll comment, hey, the centering's off of that, or the price is too high, or this or that. So just join those groups. Some you have to be invited into, but that is a good learning environment for anyone to just scroll through those pages. And don't put your 2 cents in unless you're ready for people to come back at you. Because you could say anything in a group. Even if you're 100% right, there'll be somebody who say no. So just be wary of that if you have thin skin. Who is this for? Basically, collectors who are on a budget. So like I mentioned, your dream card is this. It costs, $5,000 in a 10. It costs $2,500 in a 9. It costs $1,000 in an 8. Go on down the line. But you don't have that. You only have $400 to spend. All of a sudden, one comes up on the market. It's damaged. The guy says it's damaged. And there you go. You got your dream card. So beautiful for that. More experienced buyers. Okay? So like I said, once you're educated, you're feeling good, that is the time you could get into this. So you also are the type of person who has the experience, but you're also looking to profit. That's perfect for this. Profits are your game. Buying raw, grading, selling is the golden formula. How well you do it is obviously going to be dependent on your effort and how much information you take in, but that is the way to do it. And then you have the newer buyers, people who are brand new. So it's not time for you to be buying a PSA 10 $2,000 card, but you are ready to get into the market. But the key with those people is you have access to somebody who has knowledge much, much greater than you do. So like I'm in a group where a guy taught us, and now it's like a community type of thing. And that is a great thing. So if you want to be recommended for something like that, you could ask me. But a friend, somebody you know who does it, somebody you trust, that's key. And that is a lifeline for a lot of people in this business when they first get started, and really, really important to use if you do have that, okay? So what are the basic tips for buying raw cards? Some of them I've probably gone over, but this is the start of what you need to know or pay attention to. And then, this was a never-ending topic moving forward. So plenty of more information if something's not addressed. Number one thing you need to do, learn as much as you can about grading cards and the process, okay? Learn what the difference between a 9.5 and a 9 is. Learn what subgrades are. Learn what a PSA 10 and a PSA 9 and all that go for. Why? Because, again, when you're looking at your card and you're trying to determine the value and you're trying to determine what condition it's in and all this, you need to know what the graders actually are looking at. So if you don't know that the 4 criteria for the graders are centering, edges, surface, and corners, and you're looking at the card, because it's shiny and you're like, wow, it looks good, you are going to get hurt. So learn if you want to profit about where to send certain cards, the turnaround times, group submissions, which might be cheaper. So you only have 7 cards, but you have a group submitter that the group rate is a lot cheaper than you could send the 7 out yourself, okay? People clean the cards nowadays. That's something that, again, could increase the grade. All of this stuff will be talked about, but you need to learn and start learning yourself if you're going to be buying raw cards. Unless, like I said, you're the collector that's just buying it to have it because you can't get the higher end one. Number 2, determine what your max bid is for your cards that you are targeting before you search to buy. Why is this important? Do you know how many times in the beginning that I would say, okay, I am looking for a Pete Alonso 2016 Bowman First base autograph. Okay? How many times with the same card that I went through one day, I saw a card, and then I had to go comp it. I had to go see what it sold for. And then a week would go by. I kind of forgot about it. And then same thing. I'm still looking for the same type of card. Another one's up for sale. I got to go back and comp it again. And it's just, I keep going back and forth, wasting time. And then when you're just trying to buy a player in general, and you got Topps, you got Chrome, you got Bowman, you got 50 different things going on, you'll waste a tremendous amount of time comping cards. The problem that leads to is you rush. So, guy has a card up for sale, target card. Boom. It's raw. It looks good. Now, he wants X amount of dollars. You are like, oh my God, I don't want to miss this. You rush. You type in. You look as fast as you can to see if the value that he's asking is right. And then you say, okay, but you missed a few things. And you missed the card sold yesterday for, $100 less than you just paid him. So that is something that you could avoid by having a baseline of what you want to pay. What is the value of that card? Now, as the market changes, you want to go back in and adjust that. But if you have the baseline, it will save a lot of time. And you'll also be able to eliminate people who are wanting top dollar for something. If somebody has a card that is $500 sold the last 50 times on eBay, and he wants $600, you'll know that already, and you won't even waste your time beginning a negotiation with him. So that's important, okay? Number 3, look for bulk lots. Raw cards are commonly sold in groups. So like I said, I have Cam Reddish sitting here, probably 50 or 60 of them at this point, stacking up. A billion other people have different lots like that they put together, okay? So look for those. Now, you have to be smart with those as well, but buying a bulk lot leads to a lower price per card for that day, generally, because the seller is motivated to move all of them at the same time. The reason is not that he wants to make less money. It's just that time-wise, he doesn't have the time to piece out each card and sell them. So that could be something going on in his life where he needs money and he has to bail out. Or it's just, like I said, a timing issue. It takes a long time to sell every individual card. So that's why dealers make a ton of money, because they'll buy an entire collection from somebody that has 5,000 different things, and they have the time to sell them individually and make max profit, where that family of the person, they don't have the time, they don't have the expertise, the knowledge to even attempt that. So they're willing to take a lower price and be happy with that in exchange for immediate cash. So you can take advantage of bulk lots, and it's a really, really strong idea to do it if you have, obviously, money to put down on that. Number 4, educate yourself on every red flag to watch out for attached to sellers and actually the cards themselves. So again, look for issues with the cards that will kill the grade. Look for red flags with the seller and how they're describing the card, okay? So if they're guaranteeing, hey, this is a PSA 10, and his card is $50 higher than everyone else's because he's guaranteeing a 10, that's a red flag, okay? Because if he was such an expert in grading and could guarantee a 10, why is that one card sitting in his collection when he has 50 other cards graded on his listings, okay? Watch all those things. I could spend a million hours on red flags with sellers, but the way that they describe something is very important to pay attention to. Now, some people are straight up and honest, which makes it easier for you. Card's damaged. Left corner has a nick. There's a surface scratch. There's a printing line. This card was cracked out of a BECKETT 9 holder. All of those things you want to look for, and that just takes a little bit of effort, okay? Now, from there, you don't want to forget to analyze the autograph on the card if it is an autographed card. This is a rookie mistake, one that I made myself, okay? I bought a Devin Booker flawless card. I was very excited about it. I think Devin Booker is a superstar already that nobody talks about. I think the Suns are trending in the right direction. So I saw this card, rare card, beautiful, really good price. I bought it, okay? Sent it out, got it graded. Card came back a 9.5. I was so happy. I was like, damn, this is great. The autograph was a 9. So I was like, okay, what's the big deal? Isn't the condition of the card better? A 9 is a death sentence on a card. Okay? So you want to check those autographs. Make sure that they are going to grade a 10. Okay? Some of the things to look for. Again, this will be in the next show more in depth. Streaks in the autograph that are clear. 2 of them is death. 1 of them sometimes you get away with, but 2, forget it. Smudges. So the kind of autograph's a little messy, or there's a ink droplet not on the autograph, somewhere else on the card, stuff like that. And then one of the big things is the autograph goes off the card. So the guy signs it, and it gets cut off because he ran out of the room. All right? And again, you got to remember, these guys are signing God knows how many cards sitting there. Sometimes they'll get a little lax. All right? So you want to watch those things, because you don't want to buy a card, send it out, and it comes back with a 9 autograph, because you're going to lose there. Okay? And the last thing, don't be shy. Ask questions, whether that's to the sellers. Hey, you know what? I can't see the back of the card. It's a little blurry. Can you send me a clearer picture? Or you only have the front of the card posted. Can I have an actual picture of the back? Or has this card ever been submitted? Or whatever. Now, you'll feel like a pain in the ass sometimes, but you got to remember something. This is business. This is your money. Do you think people who do big business deals aren't sitting there asking every damn question under the sun? Because when your money's on the line, you have that right. And if the seller is like, I don't have a picture, or I'll get it to you later, and he never does, red flag, okay? So ask questions to the sellers. Negotiate. My advice is, don't lowball people because it pisses them off. Be respectful with the number. So if somebody has something for $500 and the comps are kind of near that, they're $450, whatever, and he has it for $500, don't offer him $200. Because even if you come back and offer $475, which is a fair offer, they might just be like, F this guy, So be respectful, but negotiate, Every dollar counts. And then also, like I said earlier, if you have somebody who has information or knowledge in this field, that is far exceeds yours, use it. Because if you don't and cost yourself money, it is a blunder. So don't be shy. Whether you're in a group, whether you're in a big, large Facebook group, you could ask questions. Now, you'll learn very quickly what questions are not to be asked. Like, don't go into the group and say, what is this valued at? When all that's going to happen is you're going to be looked at like an idiot, because you could go on eBay and find the comps and figure out the value yourself, and you're just being lazy. So don't do stuff like that. What grade is this going to grade is kind of an annoying question, because, again, grading is subjective. So if you want to really know, send it out to be graded. But, again, if there's a real legit question about something, ask it. Okay? So with that being said, the next thing that we're going to finish with here is graded cards. All right, so number 5, graded cards. A lot of the stuff I just said is going to overlap. A lot of stuff will be left out, in terms of details on this, but we'll get to that. So what is it? This is buying cards already been graded and encapsulated by a company such as PSA or BGS, which is BECKETT, okay? This is, again, another way to really use your money smartly. And the pros on graded cards as opposed to raw cards or some of the other options is it's a lot easier to establish the value on a graded card. It has a grade. Every graded card, unless it's a 101 or something, will have sold listing somewhere that you can find and give yourself an idea. Or if that specific player doesn't have sold 10 in a while and you can't find it, you could use a similar player with the same card and determine the value. So you just have a lot of things you could use to establish the value. Also, there's a lot more information on the graded cards out there to use. Okay. Number 2, there's a lot less of a risk of being ripped off from, a seller than the raw card market. There's still the chance there, but it's a less of a risk because now the raw cards, they're not going to be switched out, even if they don't have a serial number, because the grading company will have their own serial number on it. So that's a good thing. The card is encapsulated by a third party, an expert. So the condition is agreed upon. Nobody could hide a defect. Also, again, it has happened where fake or trimmed or doctored things have gone through and been graded. But for the most part, you're going to know the card is legit. And that is very valuable, especially when you're dealing with higher end cards. So number 3 with this, it's the most consistent hold of value. So if you're interested in buying cards and 30 years down the road, you want to know what's going to be the best investment in the card market, the graded stuff of the higher end guys is going to be where you want to put your money. Graded stuff of rookies and guys that are not yet emerged have more bang for your buck in terms of upside, but long term, again, if they hit, great. If not, it's not going to go up. It's not going to be as good of an investment. But long term, a graded rookie who pans out is going to be better than a raw rookie card or anything else you could really buy in this market. So long-term, graded cards is where it's at. Cards are protected in the encapsulation, which again is kind of an underrated thing. That plastic around there ensures that your 10 is staying at 10, okay? Sounds stupid, but when you have the cards raw, even in top loaders and different things, and you're careful, you never know. You might have kids running around, they knock into the box that has the cards, they fall. There's just a lot of stuff that could happen. So that encapsulation protects it the best of anything, unless you're, going crazy with your own method of encapsulating them. But most people are not. So that's important. And number 5, it's safer when buying the high-end stuff. So again, you want that Michael Jordan, PSA 9. as opposed to that Michael Jordan that somebody's saying could be a PSA 9. Buy graded stuff if you can when the stakes are high. So if it's a $25 card, and it's a 10, it's a no-name player, and you just like them, doesn't really make a difference. But the higher-end stuff, the graded really gives you that kind of insurance that you're getting what you're paying for, and the value is going to remain pretty consistent, especially if it's a player like Michael Jordan where his market's established. It's really only going to go up from here. Nothing's going to happen to him where the market goes down. He's not going to have a bad season anymore, so that's something to pay attention to. And because of that, it's easier to sell. So here it is. It's a 10. We both see that. We both know it's real. Here's the last 5 sold comps on 10s of this. I'll take X. That is a lot easier to accomplish when the card is graded. All right. With that, the cons of buying graded stuff, they're a lot more expensive. So one of the pros of the raw was they're cheaper. Graded stuff's more expensive. A 10 of something is going to be a lot more money than a non-graded card, no matter how nice it looks. So might price you out on some of the stuff you want. Might not make sense for you financially to be buying graded stuff. And you definitely don't want to be buying graded stuff that's graded horribly just because it's cheaper. So again, I'll talk about that in a minute. But with the more price tag attached to it up front, there's less upside. All right. You could buy the rookies and they'll go up and you'll see things really go crazy. But overall, the upside of a graded card is not as high as buying a raw card that you grade and then try and sell. Okay, so you'll have more consistency with it, but the overall upside might be a little harder to get to for most guys. Again, all of these things, there's a lot of details to them, so we will get into that as time goes along, but just in general, that's how it is. They're harder to store. With that protection comes a case that doesn't seem like it'd be very big, but if you have 50 or 100 graded cards, you know that they take up space and they're valuable. So now you got to worry about maybe getting a safe or, storing them in a different facility. There's just more room it takes up. And obviously the safety of having them in your house could be an issue. All right. So raw cards, you could have 5,000 raw cards sitting in one box, but you can't fit more than 40 or 50 graded cards in the same kind of box. So that could definitely affect people out there depending on your situation, all right? There's also a smaller buyer pool for the graded stuff already because, again, a lot of the people and why the market's taken off are in this to make money. So because there's less upside and you might have to wait a little bit longer to make profit on something that's graded already, there's less buyers, all right, less action. There's plenty of big end buyers. There's plenty of money, but the amount of those people might be a little bit smaller than the other types of cards that are raw or even boxes and stuff. Like 1 billion people buy boxes. They love it. But how many people buy PSA 10s? It's a much smaller number, okay? Where are we buying the graded cards? Again, anywhere. Any of the other options are being sold. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. And who should be buying graded cards? One, if you have a bigger budget, you want higher quality stuff, those are for you. People who are in this for the long run. Okay? You're worried about 30 years from now, you're still going to be doing this in your mind. These are the cards that you want to be buying right now. Because again, until you figure out how to grade them and buy them raw, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. So just buying the cards as is already with the intention of, hey, I'm not looking to flip them or sell them now. That's your best bet, okay, of getting a sure thing for your money. People who are interested in vintage cards, again, you're not going to see a lot of raw Michael Jordan rookie cards out there that are worth looking at because they're either fake or they're damaged or they're not going to grade. So if you want vintage stuff, if you don't believe in the Xeons of the world, that doesn't interest you, the graded cards are the way to go. All right, because again, it's just huge risk buying an ungraded vintage card. There's a billion fakes. So you want to buy a Mickey Mantle Topps 1952 rookie, and you see one raw, run the other way in most cases. All right, so that's the type of card. Buy it, even if it's a 2 or a 1, or it doesn't matter the grade. That's something that I suggest you buy. Obviously, graded. Number 4. People who do not want to learn about grading. So you need knowledge in it. You need to know the difference in pricing, like from a 10 or a 9. But you don't need to know what the grading means, what they're looking for. You don't need to know what a centered card is. You know, if the card is graded, centered, that should be good enough for you, okay? The tips on buying graded cards. Well, again, a lot of this stuff overlaps. Learn everything you can about finding the sold comps. That goes for all of this stuff, but for this stuff especially because there is a lot of information out there on graded stuff. 10, hey, there'll be articles about certain cards and what they sold for and the trends. Learn where to find it. Learn how to use eBay's advanced listing to find sold comps. Learn the different websites. Learn all that stuff. It's good for you anyway, but with this, you need to. Pay attention to the market trends, see what a PSA 10 2 years ago goes for and of the same player and what they're going for now. That's all readily available to you. Use it. Stay with PSA or BECKETT. For now, at least, there's some other grading companies that people believe in and say are good. But in terms of value, one of the biggest things that people make a mistake is they see a PSA 10 is selling for $500, and then they'll see another grading service have the card graded as a 10, and they'll buy it because it's up there for $400. They don't hold the same value at this point. Can that change down the road? Absolutely. PSA could go out of business tomorrow. Somebody else could take, kind of their place. But for right now, PSA and BGS, BECKETT are what you need to stay with. Okay, don't get cute with that stuff unless you're a true expert and you could buy a card and then crack it and resubmit it. All right. Learn the difference at minimum. Again, you don't have to learn all about grading, but learn the difference that each card commands in terms of grade. So what does that mean? A 9.5 compared to a PSA 10, a 9 to a 9, a 10 to a 10. See what the differences are. So when you're going to buy something, BECKETT 10 is not equivalent to a PSA 10 in terms of value. So you can't line up the prices. So if somebody has a PSA 10 and is telling you, well, look at this one, it's sold for $1,300, and theirs is a PSA, but the one that sold for $1,300 is a BECKETT 10, if you just assume they're the same thing, you're going to be burnt. Try to only buy Gem Mint cards, which Gem Mint is for BECKETT 9.5 or above. You have subgrades and true gems and different stuff. Talk about next time. But PSA 10. So you don't want to be buying 9s or 8.5s. Now, if they're vintage players, that is obviously different advice. But for the new rookies and modern guys, 9.5 or 10 if you can. Some things are worth buying as a 9, but they're a lot harder to sell. And honestly, you don't want to be messing around with that in the beginning, especially. All right. Like I mentioned earlier, the autograph cards, only buy cards that are graded 10 or look like a 10 if PSA has no grade for the auto. This is huge. Again, I made this mistake with grading, and I wasn't paying attention to looking at the card raw with the autograph. But if a card's at a 9 auto from BECKETT, PSA, some of the cards will have autograph grades on them, but most do not. So here's the trick that a lot of times. If the auto looks like shit, but the card looks good, people will send it to PSA and not want the auto grade on there, and then it'll just say PSA 10, and it's up for interpretation. So analyze the card in the holder, because trust me, just because the card's a 10, if it has an autograph and the autograph looks awful, you're not going to get the same value for it. Okay? So that's important to know. BECKETT 9 autograph. If the card is a 10 and comes back with a 9 autograph, a lot of people aren't even going to want it. Which is crazy in my mind to hear, because the autograph is such like, it's a signature and they're grading it. Penmanship, my penmanship's horrible. Like, is somebody really going to determine value off of that? But they do. It's very important. So pay attention to that. Don't leave that out when you're looking. And again, with some of the thicker cards, like a National Treasures rookie patch auto, the autograph grade won't be on the front. It will be on the back. So this is a trick people use. They'll put up 9.5, grade, and they'll post the card on the internet, but there's no picture of the back, or they'll post the picture of the back, but they don't mention anything about the autograph grade. So just say 9.5. So you look at it and you're like, all right, that must be a 9.5. Maybe you don't even realize the 10, but you're just not thinking about it. And then you get the card, oh shit, it's a 9.59. Little shady move on the seller's part to not put that out there, but it's also much more your fault that you're not paying attention. So that is something with BECKETT. Sometimes the autographs will be on the back, okay? Last thing, 2 things. Know when to act fast and when to be patient, all right? There's a super rare card that you want, that's in your budget, that you believe in, and somebody has it out there, even if it's full-on value from what you think it is, or, it's something that is like, that's a really good deal. Know when to jump, and then no negotiate, just, hey, I'll take it. Know when to be patient when somebody is listing something for $900 and it's really, he wants $800, but that's the way to get an offer and everyone feels good. You feel like you save money at $800. He got what he want. That's very common in sales. So know when to act, know when to push back, okay? And that leads me to the last point is don't worry about overpaying if it's a rare card and a high grade. That is something you really see value in. But again, pay attention to the values in general, but it's not horrible to overpay for something that is super rare. So the population report, it's 1 in that grade, and that card's up for sale. And the last time it sold was 2 years ago for $2,000, whatever. And you got to pay $3,000 right now, but you believe that card could be $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $10,000 down the road. It's okay to act. Again, some things are worth jumping all over. All right. And again, small little other point, check the population reports, which is on BECKETT and PSA's website. So again, next video, I'll show you how to do that, because population reports, how many are graded in each grade, is a big determining factor in what the value of that card can be, will be, and if it's something worth your time. So, a lot of information I know in this, but this is really just the intro. So you can only imagine how long, these things should go on if I broke down every detail that I know. Forget about every single detail that still remains to be learned by me. All right. So next video, I am going to do one about grading. What is grading? Who grades? What the grades are, what they mean, what they look for, and really break that down so that from here where okay, what to buy or what strategy I should use to buy, if one of them is the raw card thing, or even if you're buying graded cards, you'll have a really good understanding of the overall grading process in sports cards, because that is what has made sports cards so big right now, and grading is the reason for that. So stay safe, stay healthy. Talk to you very soon.